Yet more valuable fantasy pieces went down in Week 7, as the roster train has been nonstop here in the 2024 season. Today, we are continuing our Moves to Make series, 5 actions we need to look into making before Week 8's kickoff. But before we dig in, head over to 4for4.com, use promo code YouTube to get yourself 25% off any subscription plan. Add Ricky Pearsall. It has been a tumultuous season of injuries at this point in the season for the 49ers. It felt yet another blow in Week 7. With Deebo Samuel and Juwan Jennings missing time in the wide receiver room, and Christian McCaffrey, of course, missing most of the season at running back, Brandon Ayuk went down in the second quarter of the Super Bowl 58 rematch. It didn't look good from the get-go, and it has now been confirmed that he tore his right ACL and will miss at least the rest of this season. There's no scenario in which an injury comes at a good time. There's at least some optimism surrounding Ricky Pearsall, who returned to the field Week 7. His usage was light, considering this was his first professional game after being shot in the chest at the end of August, but with Ayuk's injury, the rookie ended up playing deep into the second half and actually led the team with an 81.1% route participation rate. If the team is willing to use him that much on short notice, it's a fair bet that they would do it with a full week of preparation, even if we project Deebo Samuel to be 100%. Maybe more encouraging than the route rate was the fact that the team used Pearsall all over the field, with a 52.8% rate out wide and 47.2% rate out of the slot. That should help keep him on the field when the remainder of the wide receiver room, not including Ayuk obviously, returns to health. Pearsall profiles as a very rare handcuff type option in fantasy for the rest of the season. This is typically not a situation to target at this position, but the team took him at the end of the first round of the NFL draft for a reason. Whether they improve or regress from their current 3-4 record, they're going to want to see what they have in their rookie. This is a step or two above a speculative ad, and he would be an intriguing option in deep leagues for Week 8 if Jennings or Deebo, or both, miss the game against the Cowboys. Hold Courtland Sutton for one more week. After some up and very down production, Courtland Sutton finally hit rock bottom in Week 7. Failing to hit 6 fantasy points in 3 of his 6 games, Sutton looked like a poor man's boom-bust option, but then Week 7 happened. He received only 1 target, which was negated by a defensive holding penalty, which gave him a full goose egg in the box score. This came just 1 week after grabbing his second touchdown of the year and coincides with some younger players seeing more action. Through the first 6 weeks of the season, the veteran easily led the team with an 80.1% route participation. In Week 7, he barely edged out rookie Troy Franklin at 69.7% to 63.6%. Franklin and fellow rookie Devon Vele have now set new season highs in route participation over these last 2 games. And while simply dropping Sutton seems perfectly reasonable at this rate, I implore you to hold him for just one more matchup. It's not necessarily because I want to start him in Week 8, but a matchup against the woebegone Panthers defense is not something I want our league mates to be able to take advantage of. Through 7 games for Carolina, they've allowed an average of 385 total yards per game, while opposing offenses are scoring almost 35 points per contest. This could be a situation where a squeaky wheel narrative gets Sutton some extra looks against what is very likely the worst defense in the league. He's fine as a very deep play, but better yet, if he has a great game, we can see if any hungry managers want to take the plunge. Buy Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Only 3 games with more than 40 yards on a team that ranks first in both pass attempts and passing yards. This includes Week 7, when Jaxon Smith-Njigba took 6 targets for 9 yards, with 2 of those catches coming from behind the line of scrimmage. Not exactly the usage we're aiming for in fantasy, and if the JSN manager feels the same way, it might be time to go after him. In addition to some simple regression for a player who's running around on 84.9% of Geno Smith's dropbacks, there's also the fact that DK Metcalf could end up missing some time due to a grade 1 sprained MCL. DK is currently considered week to week and may be available for Week 8, but if he's limited in any way, this could be the time to buy into the sophomore receiver who could earn some more looks when Geno is forced out of the pocket. Metcalf currently ranks 3rd in targets, 4th in yardage, and 2nd in air yards in those situations. This would be a nice added bonus to JSN, who has finished 3 separate games with an average depth of target under 5.0. The Seahawks are ranked 2nd in pass-to-rush ratio and neutral game script, while targeting the wide receiver position at the 5th highest rate. If DK is limited at all, or if anything were to happen to the 32-year-old Tyler Lockett, JSN would be one of the easiest targets in fantasy. See if the JSN manager is annoyed by the 11.6 combined half PPR points over the last 2 games. Drop Calvin Ridley. If you're one of the unlucky managers still staring at Calvin Ridley's 22.7 point performance back in Week 2 with tears in their eyes, I'm here to tell you it's fine to cut bait. After another disastrous performance in Week 7, the team has now failed to reach 300 total yards in 5 of 6 games and hit exactly 300 in the aforementioned Week 2 performance from Calvin Ridley. While we couldn't blame the most recent implosion on backup quarterback Mason Rudolph, let us not forget that Will Levis mustered all of 95 yards in the game prior, and they both combined for 110 yards in the game before that. Things are looking rough, and a shaky offensive line heading into the year now looks even worse. Neither quarterback option has the ability to fight through leaky protection, and their 2.9 adjusted yards per attempt, the worst mark in the league, are a testament to that. As a matter of fact, that number jumps to only 5.2 yards while not under pressure, ranking only above the tandem of Bryce Young and Andy Dalton. This is how we see Ridley earning 42 yards on 17 targets coming out of the team's Week 5 bye, a 2.47 yard per target mark that would rank 136th out of 139 qualifying wide receivers if extrapolated over the entire year. While Ridley could have a decent to good game at some point this season, are you really going to keep starting him in hopes that happens? Drop him and let a league mate find out. Add Drake Maye. One need look no further than the first 5 weeks of the Patriots offense to see what Drake Maye brings to the table. While serviceable backup Jacoby Brissett couldn't manage more than 170 passing yards in any single game, Maye has now accumulated 519 yards through 2 starts, and one of those came against the Texans defense that had been allowing the 4th lowest passing yards per game up to that point. Granted, Maye's other start was against a very questionable Jaguars defense, but nonetheless, his team has looked far more fantasy viable with the rookie at the helm. He has a more than respectable 7.4 yards per target, while only 8.6% of his throws have traveled more than 20 yards down the field in his 2 starts. He's showing a little bit of what he can do with his legs. 56 yards on 8 carries isn't going to flip the fantasy slate anytime soon, but it's very likely the floor of what he can offer over any 2-game sample. While the preseason comps to Josh Allen may have been a little overstated, he does have the athleticism to gobble up the open areas of the field when he breaks the pocket. In 2022 and 2023, Maye ranked 3rd in this year's draft class in runs of 10-plus yards, with 32 and 24, respectively. And while mentioning his draft profile, it's worth pointing out that he ranked behind just Michael Penix Jr., with 19.8% of his pass attempts traveling 20 or more yards down the field, finishing with the 4th best adjusted completion percentage on those throws. Maybe the Pats would like the receivers to get fully healthy and on the same page as Maye before they unlock his potential in the deep game, but we could see them start to open it up as the season goes along. The rookie looks like a very solid add as a QB2 on your roster, and if things start clicking, he could be a very valuable dual threat option in the second half of the season.